Our next speaker is His Excellency Ambassador Afif Safieh. I'd like to welcome Mr. Aziz Safieh.
Dear friends, I think we all agree that we owe a debt of gratitude to Makram Machul because he took the initiative of the 100 Years institution. And I believe we should not be resigned into becoming an object of history. We should recapture the initiative and become a subject of our own history. Let me tell you, I personally do not believe in historical inevitabilities. I don't believe in predetermination. I don't believe that the oppressed will inevitably become victorious one day. I believe history is a cemetery of oppressed people who remained oppressed until they vanished into historical oblivion. And I believe in the Middle East, the dilemma today, realistically, is the following. There is either one people too many, we the Palestinians, or there is a state which is missing. The international community in the UN and elsewhere has said its opinion. There is a state missing, needing to be created. But I have news for you. I believe history is still undecided. And I believe our task, our challenge, Ya Muhammad, is how to help history make the right choice. So let me tell you very frankly, in international relations today, we the Arabs have become quantité négligeable, negligible quantity. There is no interest in befriending us, and there is no risk taken in antagonizing us. We, the Palestinians, a victim of history, we are in a poor shape today, and we need to do some soul searching. And let me tell you, when three Palestinians gather, many have elevated pessimism as though it became the only criteria of measurement of one's patriotism. We compete on who is more pessimistic. But that's a castrating, politically castrating attitude. Only optimists make history, but credible optimists. And I believe we should shake ourselves up. Some 30 years ago, when I was ambassador in London, as I was saying to Jenny, I'm a 20th century phenomenon, so we met in the 20th century. There was an Algerian ambassador, and Algerians are not known to be humorous. This one was. And he had a wonderful joke to explain Arab decadence. He said, you know, one day 4 persons met in heaven and decided to go down to hell as a fact-finding committee. The devil welcomed them very joyfully, and he took them around. And hell apparently is made of big pots of boiling oil on an ethnic basis. There was a French, an Italian, a German, a British, an Arab, etc. And on every pot, ya Makram, there was a small devil with a spear, and whoever tried to float over the boiling oil to have a puff of fresh air, the devil with the spear would push him down again. Except the Arab pot. No devil, no spear, total tranquility, total serenity. So the fact-finding commission is intrigued. So they asked the devil, how come this pot has no devil and no spear? He said, out of experience I discovered that we don't need a devil and a spear here, because in that pot, if anybody emerges, they take charge of pulling him back. So my dear, we need some soul searching on why we as a community, a collectivity, a people, a nation, in contemporary history, in modern history, we seem to be déphasé, déplacé, out of place, unsuccessful, unhappy, miserable, etc., etc. So we need to do fast, because time is running out. And as I told you, history is undecided, and our task is to help history make the right choices. Now, let me tell you, there is a debate in this country, and I'm not happy about this course of events, but we, the Arab-British community, are non-existent in political terms. Do we have a voice? Do we have institutions that weigh on political parties? The answer is no. Let me ask why. I look at this room, you're all adorable, wonderful, remarkable individuals. It would make any political party, Jenny, blush of envy. They all would love to have such a collectivity of individuals who are adorable, charming, educated, etc., etc. Yet, as a group, We don't weigh at all. We are invisible, negligible. And we have to change that course of history. And we are not a bunch of losers resigned to remain a bunch of losers. There is a debate in this country, and this country is an interesting country. For example, and I'm happy we have 3 pillars of the Jerusalem community who happened to be passing through London and through social media discovered there was this event. Claudette Habash, for years, a very successful leader of Caritas in Jerusalem, did wonderful work. Bassem Khoury, who is an industrialist in Palestine with a company, pharmaceutical, doing excellently well and exporting to the outside world, showing that when we, the Palestinians, want, we can be achievers, doers, and successful. And his adorable wife, Sandra. Let me tell you, my friends, this country, there was a debate in this country, and it was said that Britain is a country that lost an empire and is still looking for a role. And in the foreign policy community, there was always a discussion, is Britain punching above its weight, beneath its weight? Is it punching at all? It is still in the ring after Brexit, all questions. When I was in America on the lecturing circuit, I did my share to make popular a joke which I think is very profound. Do you know why Britain once had an empire from where the sun never set? It's because God never trusted them in the dark. And if ever anybody should not have trusted Britain in the dark or in the day, it's we, the Palestinians. Now, let me tell you, there is a debate about anti-Semitism. And they took decisions which I believe are very questionable and very offensive of adopting the definition of the pro-Israeli lobby on what anti-Semitism is. Criticizing Israel, criticizing Zionism from now on is anti-Semitism. No, no, and no. And nobody will attack our freedom of speech. And I, as a Roman Catholic, was revolting centuries after against the Catholic Spanish Inquisition, and we should not be resigned today to the pro-Israeli Inquisition that they try to inflict on us. Anti-Semitism. Well, we, and I'm sure I speak for everybody in this room, we are against anti-Semitism for 2 reasons. One, because we are universalists. We are against any discrimination of any kind. So as universalists. But also because it is our enlightened national collective interest to be against anti-Semitism. It's anti-Semitism and Hitler that pushed Jewish communities into the arms of Zionism. Until 1993, which is the date of the accession of Hitler to power, Zionism was a minority phenomenon among European Jewish communities. So we are the indirect victims of Hitler. So, 1, because we are universalists. 2, because of our enlightened, selfish interest. We are against anti-Semitism. And let me tell you, blunders made by some of those who thought to be our supporters in France, the result was not liberating Palestine. It resulted in an increase of Jewish immigration into Palestine, Israel. So we have to be prudent and careful. So, my friends, there is an intellectual battle going on, and I'm happy for your book, Elias, because it comes at the right moment when we need intellectual ammunition in this political battle. My friends, for example, Michael Gove, and I'm fed up with third-rate British politicians trying to get some media attention by making pro-Israeli statements. We're fed up, and you should make that known. So we. Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I know, but we should make it known. He said Israel, the shining example of democracy, and they hate Israel not because of what it does, but because of what it is. Let me comment on the issue of democracy. And I'm known to be a Democrat in the most old-fashioned way, definition of the word. Yes, Israel, Muhammad Barakeh, for its Jewish component, is democratic. But does that make Israel more adorable, less unlovable? On the contrary, I believe the Israeli democracy for the Jewish component is not an attenuating factor, it's an aggravating factor. Because what it means that every 4 years, the Israeli voter, soldier, citizen is asked to voice its opinion, his or her opinion, and continuing our oppression has been democratically supported by a comfortable majority of Israeli society. And there was a rabbi in New York in the 60s during the Vietnam War who said, in a democracy, if a few are guilty, all are responsible. Yes, so if Netanyahu is guilty, the majority of Israeli society today is responsible for the continued oppression of the Palestinian people. Now let me tell you, I am against denials. I am horrified when somebody stupidly says the Holocaust did not occur and starts discussing, was it 6 million, 5 million, 4 million, etc. It's nauseating. But I want them to know that we, the Palestinians, Claudette, we have suffered 3 successive denials in our short history of 100 years. Our mere physical existence was denied. A land for no people, for a people with no land, etc. And just recently I was talking in a dinner with a leading Zionist in this country who again repeated the theory of John Peters from time immemorial that there is no Palestinian people. The Palestinians were attracted by the Jewish prosperity introduced by the arrival of the early Zionists in early 20th century. So there is no Palestinian people. We were attracted from the Arab countries to the prosperity that was introduced by the arrival of etc. So we suffered the denial of our mere physical existence. We were denied our rights, obviously, and we were denied the recognition of our suffering. How often have we heard, suffered? Of course not. Your suffering compared to the other suffering, it's banal, it's trivial, you cannot compare it. I am against comparative martyrology. I don't like to compare Palestinian tragedy with the Holocaust, for example, for obvious reasons. I think each tragedy stands on its own. And if I were a Jew or a gypsy, it's Nazi atrocity, which is the worst thing in the history of mankind. If I were a Native American, Red Indian, it would be the arrival of the early European settlers that resulted almost in my total extermination. Had I been a black African, it would be slavery in yonder centuries and apartheid in last century. And if I were an Armenian, it would be the Ottoman persecution and massacre. And if I happen to be a Palestinian, it would be Zionism and the ethnic cleansing of 1948, the Nakba. Humanity, and you are humanity, should consider all the above as inadmissible and unacceptable. And there is no degrees of atrociousness. And I believe, I know of no way of how to measure pain and to quantify suffering. By the way, Muhammad, if I were to be given a choice between a protracted subhuman life and an instant death, I might choose instant death to a protracted subhuman life. So you cannot compare suffering, measure it, and quantify it. So we should be against injustice, whoever the perpetrator, whoever the victim. My friends, we suffered 3 denials. Anti-Semitism today, my belief, is the treatment and the persecution of the Palestinian people by the Israeli state. That's the anti-Semitism of today. And I think we should recapture the initiative and not accept the terms of the debate the way they have been set by the pro-Israeli lobby. Makram, I promised you not to speak endlessly. I want to end by one point. There was a concept that I thought would have a better fashionable destiny in the terminology and the phraseology of politics, and that was the concept of global tribe. That today, in the international system, we have global tribes. Jews are the global tribe par excellence, but so are the Irish, so are the Scots, so are the Armenians. Yes, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So are the Armenians, and today, since we are the Jews of the Jews, we are the Palestinians, a global tribe. And a global tribe where 50% live scattered around the world. That's the symptom of our tragedy, but it could be the source of our future empowerment, my friends, if we play our cards correctly. Let me give you examples. 12 years ago, elections in San Salvador, the candidate of the left was a certain Mr. Hamdal from Bethlehem, and the candidate of the right is certain Mr. Sakka, also from Bethlehem. And I was interviewed here in my office in London, and I said, whoever loses, there'll be a Palestinian Salvadorian in the local White House. At one moment, Ya Muhammad, in Belize, this micro-state in central Latin America, at one moment, the prime minister was from El Bire, from the Al Musa family, and his foreign minister was from the village of Beit Hanina, not the neighborhood of, prime minister in Belize. In Chile now we have 17 parliamentarians, 3 ministers, etc., etc. I personally believe today we are a global tribe. It's the symptom of our tragedy. It could be a source of empowerment. You run into Palestinians from Scandinavia to Pennsylvania to California to Australia. We lose most of our time in internal infighting. And I believe if we put our act together and if we develop a philosophy of what is expected of our scattered diaspora, we can make a difference and change the course of history. You know, 2 years ago, I was invited for a sort of condolence session when a prominent Palestinian had died. And I was asked to say a few words. And I'm always at a loss for words, as you have noticed. So I started, Jenny, by saying, Jewish perpetuation, Jewish excellence, Jewish successes have always intrigued politicians, historians, philosophers, etc. Some try to explain it by saying it's religion that keeps the cohesion and allows for the success. But others answered, yes, but half of them don't believe in God. Others said, no, it's because they are an ethnic group. Then others answered, they are technicolor. Maxime Rotenson even goes as far as Muhammad Barakeh and myself having more Hebrew blood in our veins than most of the Jews. Surely those who came from Ukraine and Moldavia and whatever. So it's not, they are not a religion, they don't all believe, they are not an ethnic group because they are technicolor. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French philosopher, existentialism, came with an answer of his own by saying, oh, it's the anti-Semite who makes the Jew. It's the anti-Semite, it's persecution that maintained the cohesion and was the driving force behind the excellence and the success. And I was talking to the Palestinians by saying, you know, we are all drowning in petty small problems, Ya Fatima, and I know that you are revolted as I am. We are behaving as though we have been insufficiently persecuted. And we can afford to have the bickering, petty attitudes, etc. I believe, yeah, Makram, and you should help, Jenny should help, Muhammad should help. I believe we should all have a soul-searching exercise and decide to turn that page of history. By ending, I would like to quote Brecht. I like that quotation of Brecht. You know, Brecht was a playwright, and one of his plays, Claudette, was called Galileo. And there is a beautiful scene where Galileo, under the physical pressure, meaning torture, of the Spanish Inquisition then in Italy, retracts on his findings and in his inventions, and I forgot what were his inventions. Is the world round, or is the moon turning around the world, or the... I don't know who's turning around whom, but he retracted. And a disciple of his in this play looks with contempt at Galileo and says, unhappy are the people who have no heroes. Then Galileo turns towards him and he says, no, my friend, unhappy are the people who still have a need for heroes. My friends, we obviously have a need for heroes, but I believe, yeah, Hisham al-Sulh, that maybe there is a need to revisit, redefine, and refine the concept of heroism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Afif Safieh.